I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas.
I'm Rudy Koski in Austin.
And I'm Greg Krugen in Houston, and this is Texas The Issue Is.
This week, we're focusing in on the race for Texas governor.
I recently sat down with Democrat nominee for governor Beto O'Rourke. We talked about abortion rights, his take on if there can be bipartisanship when it comes to gun reforms, and the controversial border.
It's an uphill climb for Democrats in Texas. What makes this year different where the governor's office is actually in play?
You look at this total abortion ban, for example, that Greg Abbott signed into law. There's no exception for rape or incest. You look at the power grid failure last year that killed more than 700 of our fellow Texans. These attacks on educators, how underpaid they are, but now having to worry that their governor's going to come after them for CRT, or the governor wants them to turn in the parents of transgender students. All that might tempt someone to despair or give up. And instead, the people of Texas are stepping up.
Do you think the abortion issue is something that's going to draw people over to the Democrat side and say, hey, I firmly am strong about this, and so I'm going to vote against Abbott because of abortion?
This is essentially a referendum on whether we're going to go back literally half a century or whether this state is going to move forward. And in much the same way that the women of Texas won protection for the right to privacy to make these very personal and often painful decisions when they won Roe versus Wade, 2 Texas attorneys, one right here in Dallas County who made that happen. It's going to be Texas women again in 2022, and they will be Republicans, they'll be independents, they'll be Democrats alike, they'll be folks who've never voted in an election before because they didn't think it mattered, and they know that in this one, literally their lives are on the line. They'll be coming out.
If Beto O'Rourke is the next governor of Texas, will you remove DPS troopers and the National Guard from the border?
What we need are solutions, and here are the ones I'm hearing from our fellow Texans. Let's have a Texas-based guest worker program. You want to come here to work? We love that. Just make sure that you follow the law and that our laws reflect our values and our interests. Republicans and Democrats can work on that together. Make sure it's easier to legally and safely and in an orderly way join family or seek asylum. We do that, and we remove everyone who has a legitimate interest to be in this country or to seek to be in this country following the law. We can then focus on those who want to traffic fentanyl or traffic in human beings.
Do you think there should be a scale back of National Guard troops and DPS troopers on the border?
If I were governor, I'd focus on those solutions that we just described. I would end the involuntary activation of these members of the Guard. I think there's still a role for those who volunteer to serve in a complementary capacity, along with Border Patrol, along with some contingent of DPS state troopers.
Do you think President Biden is doing enough on the border?
No, I don't think anyone in a position of power is doing enough on the border right now. And the best way to do more is to listen to the people who live there.
You said Governor Abbott failed Texans, Uvalde. How did he fail?
A governor, Greg Abbott, who called a special session to go after CRT, to go after trans kids, to go after our election laws, could not be bothered over these last 13 weeks to call a special session to make us safer in our classrooms. Kids across the state are already back in school, and their eyes are on us saying, hey guys, why in the last 3 months could you not do anything to make it less likely that I'll end up the same way as those kids in Uvalde?
You've said multiple times in the past, blank, yeah, we'll take your guns. Do you think that's going to help bring someone over to your side?
We can stand on principle. We can let the perfect become the enemy of the good, or we can get something done. Part of the reason that I traveled this entire state, it could be the 5th Ward in Houston, DeSoto in South Dallas County, Waxahachie in Ellis, is to listen to my fellow Texans, Republicans and Democrats, on where the common ground is, on protecting the Second Amendment and doing a better job of protecting the lives of our kids. Those 3 ideas of raising the minimum age of purchase for an AR-15, universal background check, a red flag law, that's progress. We can get that done.
What are you listening to as you crisscross the state? What's on your playlist?
It's eclectic. There's a lot of Willie Nelson. There's some Public Enemy. There's some Beyonce. There's some Leon Bridges. There's stuff that we just, as we flip through the dials on AM or FM radio, I've never heard before. People have started to give me CDs of their music, and they say, hey, Beto, I know you're traveling the whole state. Here are my songs. So a songwriter in Lubbock just gave me his, this guy named TG, just gave me his CD of 5 songs, and they're beautiful. They're amazing. So we have so much to celebrate and be proud of in this state.
A lot of ground covered in that interview. Rudy, what one word would you use to describe that interview?
Stephen, my one word would be doubling down. Somewhat of a hyphenated, but he did double down on some really hot topics there.
I'll give you a pass. That was 2 words. And Greg, what would be your one word?
I'd say earnest.
All right, the Texas Trio will be back after this break to discuss more. The Fox Texas Trio is back to discuss that interview from Democrat nominee for Governor Beto O'Rourke. Beto said that this is going to be a referendum because of the abortion issue. Do you agree on that, Greg?
It may well be, but it's also a referendum on the border crisis as well as gun control. And despite Uvalde, I still think gun control is a losing issue for Beto. Now, when we talk about the border, Beto's getting zero help from the Biden administration, which is essentially allowing a population of undocumented folks the size of Beaumont to come into the Lone Star State every month. So I think Abbott is winning those 2 issues, and he's holding his lead with them. We'll see if Beto can erode that over the next few weeks.
Governor Greg Abbott has been talking about the border every day, weekly, all day, and it is a crisis at the border. And Beto O'Rourke even said that he believes that Joe Biden, the president, is partially at fault. Rudy, do you think the border issue, is a path to the win for Governor Abbott?
Yeah, Stephen, it was interesting to hear Beto say that the Biden administration has responsibility for what's happening down on the border. But it was also interesting to hear him say that his solution was to create this new guest worker program. Well, we already had that, and it's a federal issue that can only create that. And who's been in control of Congress for the past 3-4 years? The Democrats. Where's the program? They've had it. They could do it. They haven't done it. So, short answer, 2 months ago, the border was the path to victory, in my opinion, for the Governor Greg Abbott. But everything has changed with this abortion ruling. That has really gotten a lot of people upset. A lot of crossover, a lot of independents. Look what happened in Kansas. Look what happened in the Northwest with the special elections and some of the primaries. While you can't really put too much reading in the tea leaves on those outcomes, it still is a wake-up call for the Republicans that the big red wave may certainly not be that big, and there are questions as to how big it will be in Texas. So I think the GOP has got to recognize that they just can't be a single issue, just like the Democrats can't be a single issue on abortion.
This question is for the both of you. Greg, you can take a shot at it first. Is this race really as close as the polls are showing?
Yeah, the polls have it between 5 and 7, and I think they're accurate. Look, based upon 2018 numbers, Beto O'Rourke needs to find about 500,000 votes to completely close the gap. Where is he going to find them? I think he's going to find them with younger voters. And I would expect him, or wonder why he's not focusing on the issue of legalizing marijuana. In combination with the abortion issues, I think he can rack up some additional support and close the gap.
Greg, I take those polls like a giant block of pickup size of salt. You know, it depends on who's doing the polls, when the polls are done, and some of them I just flat out don't believe. Now, is the race close? Yes, I think so. Should the Republicans, take notice of what's happening out there? Yes, but is it as close as the polls say? I don't know. And I remember Rick Perry when he was running against Kay Bailey Hutchinson, and everyone said, all the polls said that she was going to win, and it turned out that he blew her out of the water. So, the polls may be saying that it's a tight race, but things, I'm not quite sure about that one.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a tidal wave of media coming after Labor Day. We'll see how good their campaigns really are, their messaging.
And it's going to be social media too this year at this time. Everything's going to be playing out the ugly stuff. The real hard-hitting stuff is all going to be on tweets and on Facebook and emails. That's where the low punches are going to be. And I'm really interested in seeing what the late September debate's going to look like. You know, will it be a little tea cotillion or will it be a boxing match?
Greg, tell us about how they can find us on social media.
You bet, Stephen. Okay, Texas, we want to hear from you, so reach out on social media. You can find us on the station YouTube accounts, or you can contact each of the Fox Texas Trio on Twitter.
Next week, the issue is with Governor Greg Abbott. We'll see you then.